Welcome back. In this demonstration, we're going to discuss and study the designs for M.C. Escher's high and low. M.C. Escher had a great ability to fool the human eye in creating a really believable perspective drawing that not only showed perspective really well, but also showed depth of height and low. And what he did was he added a vanishing point up here at what he called the zenith, which is the highest part of a picture. And then on the opposite side of the actual picture, he would treat that as the nadir, or the lowest part of the picture. And so he would use this vanishing point in the center simultaneously for kind of two pictures that were merged together. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how to set up this picture and get one tower in, and then we'll come back in a second video and we'll finish off the other tower and have that final discussion. Okay, so getting started, you're going to need a long piece of paper, or if you're not going to use a long piece of paper, you can draw like a smaller rectangle in the regular size piece of paper, because you're going to need a long composition from top to bottom. All right, so to get started, write your name on the back of your paper. I'm going to write Mr. Lundgren. You write your name and write your section. This is probably 1, 2B, because that's what I'm making this video for. Flip your paper over and then take the bottom edge of your paper and fold it up to the top edge. This is going to help us find the center of your page. Okay, so here's the center of the page when you unfold it. There it is. Now we're going to take the right hand side and fold it over to the left hand side. And where these two lines cross, we'll find the middle. All right, and then that's going to give us 4 quadrants. So here we go. I've got 4 quadrants now. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to put my vanishing point right where they all cross here. All right, and I'm going to label this one zenith. And I'll just draw a little arrow into there. Okay, right now we're treating it as the zenith. Later we'll treat it otherwise. Okay, to get started, we're going to make the little square tiled floor at the top or the bottom of our composition. So I'm going to just start with an inch measurement away from the center. So I'm going to do 1 inch here, slide my ruler and leave the inch mark on the zenith. So I have an inch mark out here, and do the same here, leave my inch mark right on the zenith. Measure to the end of my ruler, slide my ruler down, use the end of the ruler or 0 on the zenith, and then measure out to 1 inch. So now if I connect those 1 inch dots, I'll get myself a square that's tilted so the points are along the axes of the vertical and horizontal lines. Okay, so here's our beginning square. There it is. All right, now we need our first horizon line. Now our first horizon line is going to be at the bottom of our page. So I'm actually going to measure 2 inches up from the bottom on this side, and 2 inches up on the bottom on this side. So I'm going to put the 2 inch mark on the edge of the paper here, and then I'm just going to draw the line at the end of my ruler. So there I've got 1 mark on either side of the paper. I'm going to line those up. So I've got my horizon line. So there's my horizon line. I'll mark that. Now I need 2 vanishing points. So I'm going to put one over here and label it vanishing point number 2. I'm going to put one over here and call it vanishing point number 1, and my zenith way at the top. All right. Now I'm going to start, if you look closely here, this central square figure is exactly like we made our boxes. If I just kind of place my hands over there, it just looks like one of the boxes we made in our box exercise. All right, and you'll notice that it's sitting on the horizon line because I've got the bottom part below and the above part above, right? So I'm going to set that aside and do our box here. I'm going to line my ruler up right with the zenith and the bottom of the page so that it's nice and vertical. And just draw myself a nice vertical line all the way down. Okay, so there's my first vertical line. Now we're going to just focus right in here, and we're going to make ourselves a box right on the horizon line. Okay, so I'm going to start at my vanishing point here, draw a line up to the top, vanishing point at the bottom, and that doesn't need to be exactly equal high and low, but that's all right. I'm going to leave mine like that. Then I'm just going to take vanishing point number 2 and line up those same lines here. So I've got this corner lined up with vanishing point number 2, and I've got this corner here lined up with vanishing point number 2. All right, so now I'm going to put in 2 vertical lines to kind of give the edges to my box. Now, just to be super accurate, I'm going to do 1.5 inches. So here's my half mark, and I'm going to put my mark at the end of my ruler, and I'm going to make it symmetrical. So I'm going to take my ruler, line it up with the mill, mark 1.5 inches. And I'm just arbitrarily using easily measurable things, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, whatever. You can use whatever size you want, whatever works for you, especially if you're doing centimeters, you know. Do it up with some fun centimeters. All right, and here's the right side of my building. Always making sure that I've got this ruler nice and vertical, especially for this part. It's really important to help with the illusion that the edge of your building here is at this point at a 90-degree angle to the horizon line. All right, so this is a 90-degree angle there. All right, now that all being said and taken care of, I'm just going to erase this horizon line on the inside. It's going to just clean things up a bit for us. All right, now the next trick is to make a couple levels. So if you'll see here in this picture, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels. I'm going to just simplify it a bit, and I'll just make kind of 4 levels that we're going to work with. So I'm going to take my ruler, line it up with my vanishing point. I'm not even going to measure how high they are. We'll work on that later. I'm just going to start here, and I'm going to say, here's 1 line. Move my ruler. Here's 2 lines. I'm just going to crisscross over my center line just a bit so I can easily find it later. Here's my 3rd line, and here's my 4th line. This 4th line will be the end of my building, where the building is like actually touching the sky or the ground, depending on which way you want to start thinking about it. Okay, so there's my first couple of lines. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and I'm just going to line those all up. Okay. Now, this is kind of the procedure that you would follow for a normal building if you were making a 2-point perspective drawing in class, and you're like, okay, Mr. Lundgren said to make a cityscape. Here's my building of my cityscape. I've got it all lined up. I'm following the vanishing points really nicely, and that would be the edge of your building. What you would do then is you would just take this line, and I'm going to draw a dotted line here. Okay, you would take this line and you would just do a nice vertical line. All the way up, right? I'm just going to extend that dotted line all the way to our zenith line. So there's my, like, if I were making a perfect building, it's nice and straight. The walls should be nice and vertical. But we are not making a normal building. We're going to be making an optical illusion building. So here's my other side of my building with a dotted line there. So we've got our 2 lines now. That's what our building would look like if we were making a perfect building. But what we want to do now is we want to take this zenith point and we're actually going to curve. Now, one thing that that MC Escher decided is that, you know, if you're taking this 1 point perspective and you're drawing a line, let's say over to this first floor here, that the line of it should really, you know, just like you would to 1 point perspective, you would follow this line all the way up and stay within the parameters of that line. And that your vanishing should go pretty much straight up like that, like a triangle, like a pyramid. But in order to fool the eye kind of sees things in a curved way. So what he did is he didn't freehand it, I'm sure he used some tool, but what he did is he would take this line and he would start curving it so that it curved the edge out, and then it would eventually fall into the line of that curve. All right, and he would sometimes make the curve so extreme that you would see the curve more than you would see the straight line. I'm just gonna like try to make it a little bit more curved. Okay, and he would take that line and curve it right there at the point at which, you know, it's getting to be too high. And he would take it and curve it like that. So you can kind of see the difference between those two sides and say, all right, well, this one looks like it's curving and turning away, or this one, you know, you can clearly see the angle there. So I'm going to start down here, and being right-handed, this is kind of awkward, and I don't want to turn my page too much in the video. But if I were doing this on my own, I would like rotate my page around so I can get this curve a little easier with my right-handedness. Likewise, if you're left-handed, you might want to turn it a little bit. So there we go. There's our building into perspective, kind of vanishing into the sky. All right. Now, not only did he do that, but he then would throw in the building parts like this here with the doors and the windows, and show those pieces as if they're vanishing correctly to the sides. All right. So I'm just going to throw that part in. I'm gonna freehand a lot of this just so it goes a little quicker. But if I were to take this and draw my dotted line all the way up, right? That's where it would be. If I take this line and draw my line up and then start dotting it to kind of show you how extreme the differences would be. There again, as you can see, that pitching inside, but then here I again have to turn this line, and this is where it kind of gets tough because you have to do it kind of freehand and eyeball it. But these lines are going to get closer together, just like our vanishing point lines. They're going to get closer together as they get closer to this vanishing point. So although they're starting farther apart down here, they're going to have to be closer together up at the top, just because that's the nature of perspective, right? All right, so there's kind of the edges of the building, if you will. Now, from there, I'm going to decide my center lines. So here's my center piece and my centerpiece. And now this one, in my own experimentations, I found this one is a little harder to manage because the curve is so subtle because it's on the inside. But basically, if these went straight up, they'd be about here. And we have to just take that curve from the central zenith point and slowly bring it in like that. Now, as I said, I'm freehanding this because you can't really use a ruler. You just have to be really careful. And in his drawings, in MC Escher's drawings of this, he obviously did it with a pencil first and did it very mechanical, and then went back with like with a ink pen and redid it. Now I'm going to just put in the top of a curve here, just like MC Escher did in his picture. So if this is the top of my curved dome, and this is the top of my curved dome here, we know that we could find the center of this area, and I wouldn't want to measure it. I'd want to just take this and find the center, by using the X method, which we've discussed many times. So here's the center of that area, and I'm going to bring a straight line right up. And so that's where the curve should start. So if I bring it from the horizon line up, all right, and then this line is going to come from the horizon line up. Like that. Okay, now if we make the inside part, this line would line up with the vanishing point. This line would line up with the vanishing point. And then this line here I want it to be a little thinner. Come up this way and match the arch right up to the top, like that. And I'm just going to fix this one. I didn't like where that was. It was too far in. There we go. All right, so that would be how you would make the door on the one side. Then you would flip that over and do the same thing. You'd want to find the center point. Vertical line to find the top of the dome. Start at the horizon line. Okay, so there's our dome. And then this line would come up. Be pretty much parallel. You get closer and closer to make that dome. And then this line will come back to the vanishing point here. And this line on the bottom would come back to the vanishing point here, and you'd have your inside door. All right, I'm going to erase these just to get rid of that X so we can kind of see the door better. All right, and that's how you can construct an archway in your building. All right, now that we've got that archway, we can continue with a couple more windows. Now I'm just going to kind of freehand these windows. All right, if I have a window here, it's going back to the vanishing point. If I have a window here, it's going back to the vanishing point, right? I'm just going to use this edge. Now here's my other window on the right-hand side, going back to my vanishing point. So in my mind, I'm lining it up with the vanishing point, all the way back. This one going back to the vanishing point, right? So here's the square of my window. Now I'm going to take this line off of this bottom piece and bring it up layer. There's the edge of the window, and here's the underneath portion of the window, and this would go back to the vanishing point as well. All right, so if I show you, or if I like outline that for you, it would be the bottom edge of the window, the outside edge of the window, starting the curve a little bit, outside edge of the window, outside edge of the window, and then this is the under portion of the window like that. Okay, same on the other side, following the same principles, going back to the vanishing point. Here's the edge of the window starting its curve. Here's the top edge of that window, or like the underside edge of it. Here's the inside edge of that window, and there's that. So you've got now the window in there, and you can see from one example to the other, I made my first example a little smaller, and this one I've made just a little bit larger. I'm just going to continue now with a couple more windows, making sure to angle back to the vanishing point. Now, like I said, I'm kind of freehanding this. If you were being super accurate, it would be obviously much nicer, but I want to try to get this done quickly so the video doesn't take quite so long. Okay, there's my second floor window. Third floor, wait, 1, 2, 3 floors. Here's my fourth floor window. And notice I'm just laying that window right along the edge of what's already there. Okay, and there's my next one. And what's really helpful is having these vanishing point lines already drawn in so that you can just reuse them. Because I'm just kind of lining them up here with this. Alright, now the trick is at the bottom, I've got one more kind of window here. I'm going to do a really tall one. I'm going to put in one more little floor at the bottom, all right, so that we can kind of see the window here and here. So I'll put in one really tall window, the penthouse, I guess we'll call this, and the penthouse is going to come here and here and follow our lines around just like the other windows. And it's important here to make those vanishing point lines, the orthogonals, really extreme, because that's what's happening to it, is it's getting to be a really extreme view. Now what I'm going to do is at the top of this, I'm going to just erase these lines to kind of give you the feel that this is the bottom, or rather the top of the building. So here's the top edge of the building this way, and the top edge of the building over here is coming down like that. So there you've got kind of the top edge zooming away from us. And if I start to take this last little piece here and just like make this kind of ground area, this is what MC Escher did in his example design for this, is he kind of just put in a tiled floor here, because it seemed that a tiled floor could be both a floor and a ceiling in a sense, because just the pattern of it worked out nicely. So that's going to be a nice just stabilizing pattern for any picture that goes along with this kind of three-dimensional thing. Alright, so I'm just going to finish this floor. There we go. Now in the next video we're going to come back and basically do the same thing, but we'll talk a little bit more about how he changes this zenith to the nadir. All right, so that's how you set up a building going three-dimensionally from two vanishing points up to the zenith.